Hey everyone, Backyard Farmer Pat here. Today it's all about the tomatoes. I can tell you there is nothing more delicious than picking a tomato straight out of your garden and eating it straight out of the garden. You think you know tomatoes? You think you've had a tomato? If you haven't had a tomato straight from your garden, I can tell you you haven't had a real tomato. So today I'm going to show you how my seedlings are doing from the seeds that I planted a couple weeks ago. I'm also going to show you the right way to plant a tomato plant. If you buy like a store-bought plant, I'm going to show you the right way to plant it so you can maximize your tomato. First of all, maximize the taste. So the taste is really great, and maximize the amount of tomatoes you get. So let's get started. Okay, so first up, let's check out the tomato seedlings that I started. Literally, I started them right before the frost. So they were a little bit slow coming up because of the frost. But as you can see, they finally came up. So these tomatoes right here are my brandywine tomatoes. What I'm gonna do is wait until I get a little bit bigger. Right now, these are just the baby leaves. Once they get their first set of true leaves, which will be the next set of leaves, I'm gonna separate these, and I might just plant them straight into the yard. At this point, if you're in a warmer climate like I am, I'm in Central Florida, I can probably transfer them out because I don't think there's gonna be any more frost. But otherwise, you can transplant them into a bigger pot once they have their second set of leaves, and wait until it warms up in your climate. Here I have my red cherry tomatoes. So I see a couple came up so far, so these are doing really well. And then my black cherries, they're a little bit behind, but I finally see that there are two sets of three tomatoes coming up. So I'm gonna have a lot of really delicious tomatoes. Right in front of that are my cucumbers, my muncher cucumbers. They're doing really well. Then the rest of these are peppers. So far I have one Scotch bonnet coming up. The others haven't come up yet, but it's still early, so I'm expecting more. So all right, so we're here over by the tomatoes. So I bought this one from Bonnie Plants. It is called Sun Sugar. So that name got me. First of all, it's a yellow cherry tomato, and I have never grown yellow tomatoes, so I figured that would make it pretty interesting. And that word sugar, that sure got me. So I'm looking forward to this. So let's see what else it says. If you look really closely, it says here it's an indeterminate tomato. So what's the difference between an indeterminate tomato and a determinate? Determinate tomatoes normally grow to a set height. So it might be 3 feet. It more grows like a bush. Indeterminate tomato vines can grow. It's usually like a vine, and it can grow and grow and grow and continue bearing for much longer. Determinate tomatoes, they grow to a specific height. They set a set number of fruits, and then that's it. It stops bearing. Indeterminate tomatoes, they continue growing. They get a lot bigger, and the more you harvest, the more they grow. So I really do prefer indeterminate tomatoes. So I'm gonna plant my sun gold, and I also bought a determinate tomato. So this one is going to be a larger tomato. It's more like a slicing tomato. So I want to try this. I just wanted to show you the difference. This one says determinate. So you can decide how you want to grow your tomato. If you have a smaller space, a lot of people that have smaller spaces, they buy the determinate tomatoes because those can also grow well in containers. Say you have a little patio area and you want to plant some tomatoes, you can plant a determinate tomato. So both tomatoes require full sun, and here's where you're gonna see the little tip that gives you stronger tomatoes, bearing 2/3 of the plant. So we must be wondering, hey, what does that mean? Aren't you supposed to plant up to the soil line? Not when it comes on to tomatoes. The deeper you bury it, the better. So let's go ahead and plant these so you can see how that looks. All right, so first we're gonna plant our sun sugar. So I'm in a bed right now this bed gets full sun. I'm gonna try and do this with one hand. You can see it has very healthy roots. What I'm gonna do is loosen up the roots slightly. because we don't want the roots to go round and round once it grows. We want the roots to grow down. The further down it grows and the more the roots spread out, is the bigger the plant is gonna be. So that's tip one, loosen the roots. And then the biggest tip, the best tip with tomatoes is to bury the plant, bury it deep down. So here, what you do is you remove all the lower branches, all these lower branches. I'm doing it with one hand, otherwise I would use a little scissor or something. But tomatoes are very, very soft. You can even plant these little suckers. You can even put this in dirt and it will grow. Tomatoes are so easy to grow. Normally I just plant one, or I grow them from seed, and once you have one or two, you don't need to buy anymore, because you can literally just break pieces off and plant it. With tomatoes, with most tomato plants, when you look along the stem, let me see if I can zoom in here. When you look along the stem, you see all these little white hairs? All these little white hairs along the stem are where roots will grow. And that's why the deeper you plant your tomato plant, you see those white hairs? The deeper you plant your tomato plant, is the thicker and healthier the trunk will be, and the thicker and healthier the roots will grow, the more roots you'll grow. So of course, if you have a thick trunk, it's going to support more fruit, and if you have healthy roots, it's going to give you more delicious tomatoes and a more abundant crop. So we're going to plant our first tomato plant. So just imagine on this plant where you can actually see the hairs, if you remove all these branches and plant it all the way here, that's going to give you even a thicker, even more roots to grow. So let's go ahead and plant our first one. So here you can see I've already removed the lower limbs, and I'm going to remove even more. Taking this one off. I'm taking this one off. Usually take the suckers off. So the sucker is the one that's in between the main trunk and the lateral branch. So I'm going to remove this sucker right here. And this sucker, I'm absolutely going to plant it. You can see it looks like a whole tree in itself. I'm going to plant this one also. So I'm going to have more tomatoes than I can even handle. Here's a couple little blossoms here, and because it's all the way down, I'm going to remove these blossoms. And not to worry, I'll get more tomatoes. I'll get more blossoms before you know it. So I'm going to remove all the lower branches, and here's what it looks like now. Let's just clean this up. I think I'm going to take this one off also. So now you can see what it looks like. It has one main trunk and just a couple little branches on top, right? So now let's dig the hole. So because we took off all those lower branches and we want roots to form, we have to dig the hole extra low. Another thing about tomatoes, you want to make sure that there's good airflow in between, because you don't want to get disease. So if you plant them too close to each other, they will get disease. There won't be enough airflow. But here you're going to notice that I have them right beside my strawberries, and also on the other side I have my little chamomile plant. And you're like, Patrice, they're supposed to be 3 feet away. Yeah, they can be 3 feet away from other big plants, but these are going to stay low, grow very low. So these are not going to interrupt my tomatoes from bearing. Plus I like to use every spot in my garden. So even though the strawberries are here right beside it, this is not going to interrupt anything. The strawberry roots are shallow, and there's nothing to worry about here. So now I took my tomato plant. I already separated the roots. I loosened up all the roots. I dug the hole very, very deep. And let's see. You see, it's all the way down, way below the soil line, because we're going to have more roots. So now I'm going to take the dirt and backfill the dirt. Be sure to keep the trunk straight, but if not, it's okay, because I'm gonna stake this plant. So I'm taking my soil, going all the way up where I removed those branches. You can see. And I'm gonna leave just the top open. Oh, there's one thing I forgot. I'm gonna add a little bit of tomato and vegetable herb fertilizer. This is Dr. Earth's herb fertilizer. You can also use a little bit of bone meal. Bone meal is really good for developing roots, and right now we want it to develop strong roots. So I'm going to put a little bit of this Dr. Earth's hair fertilizer. Any tomato and herb fertilizer should work. This one is organic, so I like it. And then now we have our tomato plants planted. For the second, let's just finish this up. So I'm just backfilling all the dirt. I'm using the same soil that was there before. And now you can see I'm just tapping it down gently. And here I'm gonna pull the mulch back around it. I always like to mulch after I plant my plants because it keeps the moisture in and it helps with the backsplash. You know, when you water, you don't want to ever have the backsplash on the leaves because that can cause disease. Also, when I'm watering my tomatoes, I'm very careful to use a nozzle and water under the leaves to avoid any backsplash. This tomato is going to grow very fast. As it grows, what I'm going to do is build a trellis so it can grab onto the trellis and grow. This is very similar to how cucumbers are. You also have bush cucumbers which grow to a certain height, like 2 feet, and you have vining cucumbers. But that's for another lesson, and I'm gonna go ahead and plant my celebrity. I'm not gonna put it on this side of the bed. This side of the bed I'm kind of reserving for my trellis and plants. So I have my chayote squash, which I thought died, that came back, so that's going to be on the trellis. I'm going to have a couple of my cucumbers along here, and of course my tomatoes. Alright, so I went ahead and planted the Determinate tomato. As you can see, I did the same thing. I planted it all very, very high. So it's about, I would say, the bottom 6 to 8 inches, or probably 8 inches are underground. I removed all the leaves just like I did with the other plants. I only left the top leaves. So I'll give an update over the next couple weeks to let you see how they're going. I actually moved it to the bed where I had some bok chow and some mustard greens, and I also have, you'll see the seedlings, the veggies that I've started from seed. Some I did back the end of December, which would be, I would say, probably 6 weeks now. Like some of these are 6 weeks old. The mustard greens are probably 6 weeks old. And then of course 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago, about 12 days ago, I sprinkled some additional mustard greens, bok choy, and various greens in here. So I'll be back in 2 weeks and I'll show you how the tomatoes did. Till next time, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to hit like and hit that notifier bell so you can see when I post more videos. I have a whole slew of videos planned, a whole slew of planting planned, and I would just love for you to be with me as I plant out my garden so that we can plant, grow, and eat together. And don't forget to share what you're planting with me. Let me know what you're planting below, and always share what you learn and share what you're growing with your friends and family. Till next time, bye now.